processes all the way through testing and random polls and everything else. And it is a moving target nowadays, as most of you probably know. DOT actually has the proposed rule, came out last Monday for saliva. So we are going to see it this year, I think, really for sure, so, it's moving along. But because of that, this is a great topic, because this is where a lot of people are moving to saliva because of the THC issue. So, I think you guys may have some questions for me on that. But I'm just gonna cover the workplace type of thing. I'm also the National Safety Council, Alcohol and Other Drugs. So, they just had a meeting last week, and I brought some of the, stuff that they've given out too, so it'll be covered here. But I'm sort of short, so I'll get, going short in the presentation. Yes?
When you say saliva, is that like it's a method for testing and something's good?
Saliva, it will be lab-based saliva is what they put out for workplace testing, yes.
See if somebody's under the influence or?
Yes.
How does that work? Testing saliva.
I can do the whole section.
I'm sorry.
No, but let me just give
I'm just curious.
there are quick screens out there right now, but saliva is usable in the non-DOT field, not DOT.
Okay.
HHS actually approved it 3 years ago, and then none of the labs did the bill. So, nothing's happened until now. And last Monday was the day, so things are moving finally. COVID hit, obviously, so that's something to do with it. Saliva, there's saliva, urine, and hair. Those are and fingernails, if you wanna get into the corrections today. But saliva has a time frame of picking up the drug does the parent drug, and it does it with 24, 48 hours. So, it is really good for post-accident and reasonable suspicion, but it's more expensive to do. So, you're gonna have to weigh things as you look at your programs. Urine obviously can go out much longer, especially for THC. That's why saliva's gonna pick up a lot of those issues, so. And then hair obviously doesn't show up for 2 weeks, and it goes out 90 days. I'm not a hair fan. Try getting it off somebody that's bald headed. Not a lot of fun. Okay, so does that answer some of your questions, and then we'll get into the CBD? Okay. Like I say, mine is sort of a cautionary tale. These are some of the abbreviations that you'll see used in here. If you guys want a copy of this, I'll be glad to send it to you. You can get my card and email me. It's pretty short, but it's more on workplace programs, okay? The Agriculture Improvement Bill of 2018 removed hemp from the definition of marijuana under the Controlled Substance Act. All right, it's kind of put how do I want to put it? Law enforcement had a hard time with this when it first came out. I've heard about the trucks that got stopped going through Nebraska because they had hemp in them, and they arrested them. So not a good situation. So anyhow, this is coming. So under that, hemp-derived products containing concentrations up to 0.3%. And Alyson's you're gonna talk a lot more on this. THC are not controlled substances. That's the big change that came, all right? THC is a primary psychoactive component of marijuana, all right? And that's why when we're talking about saliva, that picks up the parent drug in saliva, so it gets what's in their system pretty much right now. That's why we're talking about post-accident type of thing. And any product, including CBD, have a concentration of more than 3%, THC remains classified as marijuana, and it is a Schedule I drug. All right. So CBD or Canada,
Oh, cannabidiol.
thank you.
Oh, yeah.
It's the second most prevalent ingredient in hemp, so in cannabis. All right, now, the Department of Transportation requires testing for marijuana, not CBD. How many people have said, well, I took CBD when they had a positive for THC? We get it daily. Daily. Sometimes I wanna go, you stupid idiot. You know, but I can't do that. So, but the FDA does not currently certify the levels of THC in CBD. So, in CBD products. So there's no federal oversight to ensure that labels are accurate. Now, use of CBD is not a legitimate medical explanation for a laboratory-confirmed marijuana positive result. All right? So that's when they get a positive and then they say, well, it was CBD. It remains unacceptable for any safety-sensitive employee for the Department of Transportation. I'm gonna get to non-DOT in a minute, okay? So this is DOT. Regulations to use marijuana. So, gotta also look at your non-DOT policies, all right? Big issue is Colorado does not allow companies, we have a really good law. We have a lot of marijuana, but we have a good law for that. So, it says no company has to accommodate the medical use of marijuana. That's why CBD is coming in, because they can't use medical marijuana if the company doesn't want it. When you're looking at your non-DOT policies though, you cannot let somebody go unless you told them you do not accommodate it and have a sign off. I'm gonna tell you, if you don't tell people the rules, how can they follow them? Especially now when it's legal in Colorado. So those are kind of the issues that keep coming up. So no company has to accommodate. So, new laws around the country. Non-regulated, there is a wide range of what employers can do. And this is my nightmare. It changes every 3 months. I get another state or somebody doing something different. So, it's a nightmare. So if the state chooses, it is becoming an Americans with Disabilities issue. So, in Boston, a woman had medical marijuana, and they said that was ADA covered. So, you also have to do more things now than you used to in your non-regulated stuff. And that is, people need to tell you that. They're on that as an ADA. Now, you don't need to know why they're on it. And some states actually specify what they can get medical marijuana for. So it just, again, state by state. How many people are in other states other than Colorado? You 4 people. It's a nightmare. And I hope you're not in Iowa or Oklahoma. Poor.
Thank you.
Sorry. So the courts and states now, New York and Pennsylvania most recently, say you cannot allow an employer to identify safety sensitive positions because they've identified what are safety sensitive. The states of the state of New York and the city of New York and the city of Pennsylvania are saying what are safety sensitive, and you cannot do testing for THC. All right? So if you're doing CBD, when we get into, this is why I'm getting into it, it comes into this, it walks over the line, because they say, oh, I was just doing CBD. All right, and legally, if that's all they're doing, and following good CBD, then it's okay, legally.
So up front, are we supposed to confront the employees when we hire them on to identify if they're being covered under the ADA?
Under medical
under medical
marijuana,
use?
in this state, it doesn't matter, you say we don't accommodate.
Okay,
You gotta tell them though you don't
right,
accommodate it.
yeah.
Now, what I'm gonna get to is, I'll get back to this one in a minute. Safety sensitive positions. All your positions that are non-DOT, not CDL drivers or FAA or any of those, you must start looking at your job descriptions. And they must say it's a safety, you consider this a safety sensitive position. And you better be ready to defend it. That's where it boils down to. And that is the trend in every place, including the courts. And even Nevada, who has a pretty liberal type of thing on THC, says you can't test for it, but you can if they're in a safety sensitive position. Arizona, a little bit different. I'm not gonna get into each one, but they're all messy, let's put it that way. So, if you can define and they have a sign off that they understand their job is considered safety sensitive. So that's where we're getting to. So that's HR hates me, I come in here and say, you've gotta redo all your HR stuff for your job descriptions. But only the company can do that, I can't define who's safety sensitive. And then you need to get with your insurance companies on those too, alright? So, I can't tell you, I'm meeting with a big company that's in 23 states, and we're going to redefine all their job descriptions. And that's gonna be the start for their non-DOT. But they have chosen to not test for pre-employment because they're having such issues getting employees. Don't ever cut it out of post-accident or reasonable suspicion. I want you to always be testing for that. All right, now, this is where CBD and THC kind of cross here. And that is the newest trend, and you're gonna get into more on Delta 8, but and there's Delta 10. I don't even touch a Delta 10. We'll stick with Delta 8 right now. Delta 8 is difficult to come by, but the
Cannabinoid.
thank you.
Yep.
Is found in cannabis. It is low concentration, makes extraction unpopular procedure, okay? This is really who's competing with CBD, is the Delta 8s. They had ran into that in North Dakota. Delta 8, get Delta 8. We got Delta 8, don't buy CBD, Delta 8. So, instead most companies create Delta 8 products by converting hemp-derived cannabinoids such as CBD into the molecule. Alright? So, Delta 8 products have become more inexpensive for many users because of a simple lab technique called conversion. I'm going to get away from that word. I can't trouble saying it. Sorry, guys. Okay. So, I'm not gonna get into all of this, you'll probably get into more of this. The biggest thing to be safe though, this is the safety thing, people don't clean it. So you're gonna get, people are gonna have solution issues, etc. But, that's one of the big things when they're buying CBD, is they could be converting it to Delta 8. What are they buying on the market? Look at people look at those 5 people that died from fentanyl, had no idea it was even in there probably. That's what's happening. People are hiding things in every which way, or you look at it. So, this is just, but the solvents and the acids they use to make this is one of the things that becomes a safety issue. Okay. There's a doctor at University of Colorado, Anschutz, who's done some studies on this with heart, and basically what they came down to say is that you need more experience. CBD is really good for some things, but at this point he won't say it's good for the heart. Alright, and you can read this, but they're trying to do more further studies out there. So we've got in state, we've got somebody doing some studies on this, so we should be able to get more information soon as far as hearts. I will tell you, THC is not good for the heart. But whether it's the THC or whether it's the cannabis, I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see what they come up with. But there's studies going on now here in the state for that, so I thought that was pretty good. And, Dr. Allen is at AMSU, so, probably emailing or finding out there. Well, you know, like everybody says, it's always gonna help you do this, it's gonna help you do that. You're gonna hear the truth in a minute. All right. Now, I wanna talk to you about workplace testing. This is the other thing that has come out in 2018. They do what they call DL isomer testing on THC products. These, Epidex is our
Epidiolex.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I just can't talk today. To treat seizures and two rare forms, and that's of epilepsy, it is a Schedule 5, and it's basically CBD.
Yes, it is.
So, that is okay, they can take that. But if they move into, Marinol's been around since 1985. And the other one is sesame. So these are chemotherapy and aids, they were developed so people can't keep food down, they would give them this. Marinol is a synthetic THC. If they have a prescription for Marinol, the MRO has the choice now, as of 2018, of sending it off for further testing to separate out the synthetic from the real. They call it DL isomer, and you could get hit. You're gonna be 5 days to 7 days wondering why you're not getting the result back, because they sent it off for further testing. The bill, about $800, and it hits you. And I'm a TPA, third party administrator, I have no idea that's happening, all I can tell you is it's in process. They will also do that with amphetamines, with ADHD drugs too. So January 2018, that law came into effect, and that's just to warn you, you could get hit with that at some point. But these are legitimate. Marinol, I believe, is a Schedule 3, and Sesame is a Schedule 2. Might be reversed, I get them mixed up. But those are the legitimate prescriptions, and the MRO makes that decision. So it's out of our hands. That's why even the state of Colorado for workers' comp and unemployment wants you to go through a medical review office. Okay, so they make the decision, not us. All right. Okay. Heart failure. We'll get back to Dr. Allen. Oh, I skipped a thing. Okay. Again, we get the standardization has contributed to confusion surrounding where the highest qualities for safety standards. And that's really, she's gonna address the safety issues in particular, but with CBD, that is one of the biggest problems. It's safety, 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 and how it's made and what it is. And is it greater than a 0.3% THC? How do you know? Anybody? You don't. That's like cautionary tale. If they're CDL drivers or they're DOT or they're in a safety position, you need to say, be careful. Because if it comes up positive, I heard there are 2 truck drivers who lost their jobs because CBD had so much THC in it, they did not realize it. So they were suing the CBD company, it's back east somewhere, so, people just have to be careful about what they take and what they're using, so. Well, you're gonna get the good word on what's good and what the safety is, so I think it's good. like we get into safe compared with THC, may give both patients and others false sense of security. There's a lot of that out there. And, quality control variables such as risk of contaminants and pesticides, product details such as dose or product type play an equally important role in determining the risk for the individual patient. And what else is going on in their life? What are they trying to take it for? Anxiety? Probably pretty good and probably pretty safe. But if they've got other issues, how is it going to affect it? Now, I'm on Alcohol, Drugs, and Impairment Division for the National Safety Council, and they just had a meeting, so I got some few little things here for you. So, reauthorization agriculture bill was 2014, removed hemp from the Schedule 1, does not generally legalize most CBD products. However, it is not a controlled substance, period, as long as it's CBD, but nobody's overseeing this. So, DEA issued interim final rules in 2020, and USDA issued final rules for establishment of domestic hemp production program. HHS and DOT are not accepting CBD or hemp usage as a reasonable medical explanation. So you can hear that coming and going. All right, marijuana is traditionally being understood to be the flowering top of the leaves. So there are different varieties, but THC is the psychoactive part. So we don't want THC, and that's why it's only 0.3%. All right. Colorado has a lot. We're got up to 90%. What is it? When I was in college, it was 6% THC. Now Colorado's 90%. I'll tell you, that's scary. So, hemp was removed from the Controlled Substance Act and is no longer a Schedule 1 drug. So CBD, we're pretty good. This is Faye Caldwell did this. Hemp's defined as the cannabis sativa L, and any part of that plant includes the seeds thereof and any derivatives. But if it's less than a 0.3%, we're good. So that's the CBD part of it. Now, it's naturally occurring compound. It's, but it's not psychoactive. My great grandmother, 103, grew her own hemp and smoked it. I remember that as a kid thinking, oh my God, that's my grandmother. Hemp that's cultivated for the purposes of CBD products contains CBD as the dominant cannabinoid. But many products have other things in them. So that's where we're getting into the real issues of workplace. If they just did CBD, it would be okay. I have one DER that I worked with, and she took in the summer CBD, but I looked at her, I said, did you even read the label? Because it said THC CBD. Took her a month to get it out of her system. She kept coming in on non-DOT and checking herself. You know, so some people just don't get rid of it very fast. So some of the stuff, but Delta 8 hemp is not legal except in these states: Colorado, Kentucky, New York, North Dakota, Vermont, and Washington. It is banned, restricted, Delta 8, okay? Some states are considering it. This was as of 2 weeks ago, so I think this is still pretty accurate. Illinois, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Oregon. So if you're doing it in any of those states, at least Delta 8's not, it is restricted or banned. Confirmation testing of THC. They are not looking for CBD. They're only looking for THC when it goes to the lab. So the reality is, when you get a positive THC, they may have been doing CBD, but it was either above a 0.3% or they were also smoking or eating or whatever. And, okay? And it doesn't confuse CBD with THC when it's at the lab. So the labs are gonna be right, that's why we want it to go through the lab. Alright, CBD production's not federally regulated, no dosage standards have been developed, no purity or potency standards are enforced. Content's highly variable upon products, as you'll hear. And one study found 69% of 84 CBD products were inconsistent with labeling. You know, there are people out there just for money, and they'll label it any way they can to get it, okay? Just be careful.
So is that something that they're going to be, I think, working in the like the next 5 to 10 years of just trying to regulate some of those, just trying to regulate the dosage standards,
Yes.
anything like that?
And you shall talk more about it, but FDA is, actually DOT has gone to FDA and said, please put somebody onto this. And they're starting to regulate themselves, which you'll hear, which is the best part of the whole thing. Okay, but yes, it's coming. Has to be, because people are really getting hurt by taking stuff they shouldn't, so, will the consumption of other hemp-derived products cause a user to test positive for THC on workplace drug testing? Possibly. I can't tell you, you know, it depends on what they took and how much and what else they were using. And I can't emphasize enough, you need a policy. You gotta have a DOT policy, yes, but do you have a non-DOT policy to address this for other safety-sensitive positions? So, so state laws vary across the country. It's a nightmare for me. It takes me forever. I won't do policies for Iowa and Oklahoma. Those are the two states that I just bury my head in the ground. I'll go to our attorneys and say they've got to do it, so. And the other thing that I wanna pass out, I've got the stuff from National Safety Council's, their, what do you call it, reference list. But this is DOT's statement on CBD. It is on their website. Sorry guys, I thought I had that off. So basically, I'm just handling the workplace problems. We're gonna get better CBD information from somebody that does it correctly. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
You mentioned not taking it out of your post-accident drug screening plan, but can't you not automatically test for it unless you thought that it contributed to the accident because the OSHA anti-retaliation ruling?
Because it depends on who you talk to on that one. I'm gonna tell you, most insurance people want it tested.
Okay. So you
Especially,
didn't know.
yeah, okay?
Thank you, and we'll try to save some of the questions for after, because
Okay.
you might get them answered, I mean, workplace not, but
No
I'd like to
DOT
also,
No DOT questions here.
yeah.
Yeah, they're all
But
good.
also, we did leave time afterwards for questions as well.
So I might be the promissory tale. So my name's Alyson. I have known Lori for a long time now, and I'm a chiropractor by trade, but haven't practiced in a really long time, so don't ask me to adjust you. It
We've
would
got
be
wrong
the
things
worst
in the back.
adjustment you've had, but I have been sort of at the front of leading companies that teach other physicians and doctors about products and how to help their patients. And I recently, about a year ago, decided to quit my large, comfortable corporate job of doing so, and I started a cannabis company. So full disclosure, I own a cannabis company. I teach doctors around the country how to help their patients' pain, sleep, and anxiety with the use of compounds from the cannabis plant. No THC. So all medicinally, nothing recreationally. So I'm able to operate federally in all 50 states. And I do talk on this all the time. I typically talk more so on the medicinal values of the compounds in the plant, but I do exercise a lot of caution to doctors wanting to learn about this so they know what's safe for their patients. So I let people know, you know, obviously I'm doing this because this has the potential to help so many people, and it's why we see so many people self-medicating on the recreational side with marijuana, and then so many people interested in learning about CBD. So the hemp plant has been with us for a very, very, very long time, to the tune of biblical days being documented as both a medicinal plant, a nutritional plant, and something that we also use tremendously industrially for paper, concretes, plastics, clothing, all that sort of stuff. So the past 100 years, cannabis got put in jail along with a lot of people. And in 2018, the landscape has changed, and the truth is that the federal regulation has not caught up with that farming bill that passed in 2018. So it is a cautionary tale from the standpoint that most consumers don't know what it means to purchase something in an unregulated industry. That's what I'm hoping I can help you with. So if somebody that's, you know, asking you questions about, well, I just took CBD, you'll be able to leave this talk and be able to tell them 2 things they need to do if they're gonna take CBD, and, you know, work in the workplace that you are in. So it's all the same plants. This plant has been on the earth as long as we have, and actually long before. The plant is named Cannabis sativa, and the reality is most plants that we have on earth have a lot of varying degrees of chemical compounds in them. So this Cannabis sativa plant, when it is bred to be less than 0.3% or less THC, we call it hemp. When it's over 0.3% THC, we have a ton of slang terms for it, but the proper term is cannabis, which is super confusing. But the industrial form of hemp has been used for a really, really long time. So it's not like we just created hemp. Hemp's been around for thousands of years as well. And so this form of the plant is technically considered non-psychoactive. It does have those very low concentrations of THC, but anytime you go and visit a farm, which I have done many times, and it's super fascinating, you learn that there are many things that can contribute to the compound levels in a plant. Was it super rainy? Was it super dry? What were the conditions? It changes how the plant matures. Cannabis is not legal federally. It's recreationally legal now in more than 17 states, medically legal in over 36 states. The future is a federal regulation of all of this, but we're not there yet. Pandemic definitely probably slowed the initiatives down. But this has been on every voting, you know, bill that has come through Congress over the past, well, really since 2018. So this is not gonna happen quickly. I was hoping it would have happened by now, because frankly, as somebody who's doing it right, they estimate that 80% of the CBD products in the market right now will not exist with federal legalization, which for me is like, bring it on. You know, I'm doing it right, so I'm ready to go take all their business, the people who aren't doing it right. So I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did, because it certainly would help me. But it's important to understand that the terminology is confusing alone, let alone people trying to navigate all of this. Cannabis is a super stinky, smelly, oily plant. And so is CBD. So anything from this plant comes from these little oily projections on the plant, and it smells really, really terrible. And this is where all of the medicinal and nutritional compounds come from on the plant. They consider CBD and THC as major compounds or major cannabinoids in the plant. They're found in the highest concentrations. But quickly we learned in the recreational industry here, especially in Colorado, led this, that they can figure out ways to breed these plants. You can go to cannabis farms now and you can see plants that are high concentrations of THC, high concentrations of CBG, CBN. I mean, people are learning how to breed this plant for outcomes that they want. So this is a booming industry. The interesting thing, this is a big term, they're called phytocannabinoids, but the fascinating thing that I teach on, I teach a 12-hour course on this, and I'm giving it to you right now in 1 minute. Our bodies and how we balance our health So how inside of us, when things are out of balance, that we communicate that things are not well. Respiratory system, circulatory system, nervous system, inflammation, circadian rhythm, how we sleep, all of these hormones inside of us that dictate how we feel. There is a system inside of us called the endocannabinoid system, which is a huge word, and all it really means is that that system regulates every other system in our body. This is new for doctors to learn. It's revolutionary if you're on the health side of wanting to treat people in pain, with anxiety, with sleep disorders, and with a slew of other diseases, because this has been a missing piece for a lot of people. This isn't to say that you need cannabis to regulate that system. You do not. That endocannabinoid system inside of us functions really well when we are not stressed, when we're eating a really well-balanced diet, when we get lots of sunshine and time outdoors, when we are moving regularly throughout our day. It also functions really well when we have a strong sense of community, when we are doing things that we find joy from. So in general, we know when that system is functioning well. People who are not feeling well tend to have what's called a reduced endocannabinoid tone or levels in their body. The interesting thing is this plant that has been around humans since we existed has compounds that interact and help boost that system. That's why doctors can't learn about this system, because cannabis is still a Schedule I drug. So it's very interesting how many times I get censored on a daily basis. You can't even fathom it. Throw me into the COVID landscape and cannabis, and I'm like constantly trying to figure out why our social media is being shut down. And I'm just really teaching health as it relates to this system inside of our body and what the implications are with this plant. So that is just a sticky picture of the plant, trying to, make people understand that 100 years ago, in 1930, if you walked into a pharmacy, the number one ingredient to help you with pain, sleep, or stress were compounds from the cannabis plant.
I thought it was cocaine.
Well, cocaine was a little earlier, but you are correct. You are correct. Yeah.
Tell us more.
That explains so much more.
That'll be my
was a medicine.
my next supplement industry.
I knew you were old.
So it's interesting. I have folders of thousands of medical journals. I would be able to send you fascinating amounts of information about compounds from the cannabis plant and all sorts of different diseases and health conditions. I think what I wanted to do for this talk was summarize the safety effect of people using CBD and what do they need to be looking for. This area of healthcare is growing like crazy. My crystal ball tells me 5 years from now, you will be offered a vast array of drugs that the pharmaceutical industry has chemically made the compounds from this plant. They're already doing it, they're already submitting the patents. So in the future, you may get a drug called Nabalone, and you don't even know what Nabalone is, but Nabalone helps you sleep. Nabalone could very much so be a compound from the cannabis plant that the pharmaceutical industry has synthetically made in a lab and created a prescription for and prescribed to you. That is the future because it's already happening. So this system inside of us, for a lot of people, when you start to understand how it works, people start to feel a lot better. So my safety checklist for CBD is to answer these 4 questions for you. Why are people using CBD? How is it tested? What types of products are they buying? And then ultimately, what are people buying? And all of this will be done with a safety underlying tone. So when I teach about anything, it doesn't actually just have to be CBD. I always tell people that if you can find something that's clinically relevant, meaning it helps what people are suffering from, safe, and really effective, that you've hit a jackpot. Because most things are not this. So if I go to my doctor and I have chronic low back pain and he gives me opioids, effective, yeah, I'm not feeling my back pain. Safe? Absolutely not. Clinically relevant? Yes, because it's helping my low back pain. But typically this number 2 is very cautionary with most prescriptions that we're given. And for me, when I find a category that checks all these three, I get super excited about it, especially if there's misinformation. Because I feel like educating people is the beginning of people kind of opening their eyes and saying, oh, you know, that girl made some sense when she was standing up there talking about this. So when, for me, because I'm a chiropractor, I don't talk outside of these three categories much. So I don't talk about cancer, diabetes, heart disease, you know, neurological disorders, MS, Parkinson's. However, when people ask me, I send them all the research that's been done to date on cannabis compounds and those diseases. And we have a PhD on our staff who's 20 years now been doing nutritional neurosciences, and most of the time I send those people to her. So if you ever have questions about safety in a specific disease, you get to talk to Genevieve. So we talk a lot about these three. These three are immensely interconnected. So what people don't realize is the past couple of years is that anxiety and stress are incredible triggers for people experiencing pain and people experiencing insomnia. People not sleeping is a huge trigger for people to have anxiety. People not sleeping is a massive trigger to increase the pain that you're experiencing. This is so cyclical, and it's hard to get out of the cycle unless you can get to the root of where the problems lie. The past 2 years, anxiety and sleep have become their own epidemic. It's absolutely crazy, and I don't have those stats in this talk, but I really do talk about in a room of 30 people. So in a room of 10 people, 2 of those people have chronic pain, 2 of those people have a diagnosed sleep disorder, and 2 of those people have been diagnosed, meaning gone to a mental health care provider and been diagnosed with anxiety. So in this room right now of 30 people, I can confidently say 18 of us in here have something going on. And I put my hand up in the air some days of insomnia and others of anxiety. So I'm like, well, today's, you know, those two just trade off for me. But here's the interesting thing about the people who work for your companies. They're buying CBD. 1/3 of Americans now have basically used CBD. And this is what they're using them for. So this is a collective summary of 2020 consumer reports. We don't have 2021 consumer reports, collective studies yet, but this will be even higher, just based on the state of the world in 2021. So this is what Americans are seeking help for, you know? And to me, it just means that it's interesting. People that are on, I can't remember the statistic because I normally have all the data up here, but people that are on anti-anxiety pills or antidepressants, they typically still struggle with those diseases their whole life, meaning it doesn't actually go away and doesn't help them. And so they tend to constantly be trying to figure out something that could help them, you know, on their own. So clinically relevant for pain, sleep, and anxiety or stress, CBD is an incredible option. It is the most dominant compound in the cannabis plant. And this is where, to me, it shines. The cannabis plant in general shines in the safety category. There has been no evidence for dependence with CBD, no evidence for withdrawal with CBD, no evidence for any public health related problems associated with use of CBD. And adverse events, Epidiolex is this seizure medication for children. It's made with sucralose, sesame oil, and red food dye. They definitely have some diarrhea adverse effects. But in general, I'm talking about CBD here. I'm not talking about THC. THC is the psychoactive component. If I were to put this up for THC, here's what I could tell you. Low doses, this is the same report. High doses, it's the exact opposite. So the interesting thing about THC in the plant and why hemp is considered safe and medicinal is that super low doses of THC help with anxiety, they help with sleep, they help with all these things. Super high doses of THC do the exact opposite. It's called biphasic, meaning you won't sleep, you're gonna freak out, and you're probably gonna feel awful. The interesting thing is that the recreational industry, you can walk into a dispensary here in Colorado and buy pure THC resin. not understanding that the plant typically is 80% CBD, 8% THC. You just walked in and bought pure THC, and your experience, you took it for sleep, and it probably didn't help you sleep. So the interesting thing is, this is a huge area of health and wellness research right now, because people are trying to figure out how can this one molecule, CBD, that has such a huge effectiveness for all these things that we're relevant and we're struggling with, and this incredible safety profile, how can this be a thing? You know, and it's like, well, from somebody who comes from natural health care, I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. You know, we just try to do safe things and help people and not have it hurt them. But here becomes the problem. So anybody in here take other vitamins? Yes, I'm sure, of course, right? You could go to, let's say, like Vitamin Cottage or Whole Foods or even the grocery store in this state, and you could go buy some fish oil. When you buy a bottle of fish oil and you pick it up and you read the label and it says, I have this much omega-3s and this much omega-6s, and here's my other ingredients in this fish oil, that is a product that is regulated by the FDA. The FDA made sure that that manufacturer of the fish oil told you what was in it. You had to test it to prove that's what was in it, and that it doesn't contain anything harmful like heavy metals, pesticides, weird chemicals, that sort of thing, because there's a baseline safety testing for pretty much everything in the supplement industry except CBD, except hemp products. They are not regulated by the FDA. So when I go to the gas station and I pick this up and I'm like, oh my God, my gas station has CBD, how amazing. Red flag should be going off already that your gas station is probably not investing in high quality CBD. Well, this has 2 million milligrams of hemp extract in it. 2 million milligrams. In the real CBD industry, this would cost you $2 million, but you can get this at a gas station. The amazing thing about the hemp plant is that its seeds, its stalks, and its leaves and its flowers all have uses. The leaves and the flowers are the expensive part. It's where all these compounds come from that have all the medicinal effects. The stalks are used industrially, and it's very cool. People are like building houses from hemp stalks, using them for all sorts of cool things. Hemp seeds, when you grind them down, can create an oil that's like an olive oil. This right here is pure hemp seed oil. This costs you $19.99 at the gas station, and there's no CBD in it whatsoever. So everything on Amazon right now, pretty much, is hemp seed oil. Everything in your gas stations, a lot of grocery stores, is hemp seed oil. So when you go on this and you're like, oh, my fish oil, I'd like to know how many omega-3s are in this, you're not gonna find CBD anywhere on this label because it's hemp seed oil. That's the biggest issue right now in people getting ripped off in the one direction, and then I'm gonna tell you about what happens in the THC direction here. So this is an unregulated industry. There's nobody verifying that there's good guys putting good stuff on shelves. It'll happen, it has to happen. It's certainly taking longer than everybody thought that it would. But here are some studies, probably most notably that 70% of the CBD products in the industry are inaccurately labeled, meaning they don't contain what they say they do. That's the most important thing. There's actually more of a safety concern there. 49% of the products in this study tested hot for THC, over 0.3% THC. So nobody has to do THC testing on their product. They don't have to if they don't want to. They can, and if they were trying to make a ton of money, they wouldn't. Because, or they did, and they're like, oh, this one's hot, but all my products are done, I'm still gonna go sell it. That's exactly what's going on in the CBD industry, because there's no policeman standing there saying, that one can't pass go. Because once you've paid to make all your products, and then they tested hot for THC, you're left with, do I throw away all my products, or do I go sell them? And right now, it's like the Wild West. It's like Alyson and a bunch of cowboys. That's what it feels like. So this is concerning. It actually is about 40% of the products in the market test hot, and 70% of them are mislabeled, but there's a really easy solution to all of this. And that's what I'm gonna leave you guys with today, is just knowing it's very easy to know who's making a good CBD product that's safe and who isn't. And once you know that, you can move along. You can even possibly, educate somebody who maybe came in, had a positive test, they really love their CBD. Someone said this already, they might love their CBD and their joints in the evening. You don't really know what people are doing at home, but if they are using CBD for something that really helps them, then you will be able to give them some information. So when we plant the seeds and we grow hemp, it grows literally, I always tell people, like a weed, like no pun intended. 8 to 12 weeks is a full cycle of hemp. Rarely is there pesticides used. It's a very easy crop to grow. The flowers and leaves are harvested off the plant, and this is testing number 1 that would happen under FDA regulation. There's many companies like mine that operate like we're FDA regulated. So testing number 1 makes sure that this plant has no molds in it, no heavy metals in it, no other microbials, mycotoxins, all sorts of fungi or things like that could be in it. Also no pesticides from a neighboring farm or so on and so forth. So that's testing number 1. Amazing fact, hemp is a remediation crop. So if you ever read stories about Chernobyl, which still exists, they planted and have been planting hemp at Chernobyl for decades. The hemp roots literally go down into the earth and leach toxins from the earth up into the plant, and then they throw the plant away. So hemp is an amazing remediation crop. If there's been a toxic spill on farmland, they will plant hemp, recycle hemp to clean up the earth. Very great, not great if you're taking a hemp product that hasn't been tested for heavy metals from the land, right? So that's safety concern number 1. Then they take all this flour and they take everything we do is here in Colorado. They take it to an extraction facility where they basically either wash it with an alcohol or use a pressurized steam process to extract the oil that I showed you in that picture from the plant, from the leaves and the flowers. This oil then should be tested at that time for any solvents that were used in the processing of it. Typically it's an alcohol wash, but people can use other solvents as well. And people are trying to, trim cost and make the most money they can right now in this industry. So testing number 2 would still be heavy metals, microbials, pesticides, but also solvents to make sure that there's no wash left in that product. From the oil, typically people make the product from that. They put it into gummies, capsules, oils, so on and so forth. That final product should also be tested for all those same things before it goes onto a shelf. But one of the most important things it's tested for at that time is potency, meaning validating what's in the actual product so you know what you're taking. So this is the moral of the story. This gas station product has no QR code on it whatsoever. There's no way for me to validate what's in it, what isn't in it, that sort of thing. These are Amazon hemp oils, 135,000 milligrams of hemp extract, and the package on this says CBD. This is a QR code that goes to a page that doesn't work. This one says FDA approved, which is ballsy, I always say. This one comes from Amazon as well. Can't be FDA approved because it's not. And here's what happens on a really good CBD product. There's a QR code. That QR code links that batch of product to a series of certificates of analysis. No consumer wants to do this. That is the truth of the matter. So once you find a reputable CBD company, you're kind of just assuming, what, they're doing this for every batch. But this is literally what has to happen right now. I teach doctors about this so then they can tell their patients, hey, I work with a company that does all the proper safety and transparency testing. This QR code for our products will link you and to many other CBD products, 20% in the market. This is the potency tested. So this one right here will tell me how much Delta 9 THC is in the product. Delta 9 is normal THC. if anyone remembers organic chemistry, you know that the number is where a certain bond is. So you remember all those structures of chemicals and how you can move bonds around them? What they found out in labs is that delta 8 and delta 10, which is moving one chemical bond one way and another chemical bond the other way, that people could make THC and it technically, be legal. And so there's this market now of delta 8 and delta 10 THC, which is not safe because they're chemically altering this product in the lab, but it's also just really bad integrity because they're just trying to get around the fact that delta 9 THC is illegal federally, and so you would want to look at all the testing, also how much CBD is actually in the product, and then it'll give you total potential THC, CBD, so on and so forth. So this certificate of analysis tells you, like this delta 9 THC is 0.05%. This actually isn't our certificate of analysis because we guarantee 0.00% THC. So if you went to the next test, I'll tell you what it would say. The next test would be a whole bunch of other compounds that are called terpenes. They're what make the plant super smelly, but they have some medicinal value. Those are very low amounts. Then you'll see a page that says microbial. You want to see non-detected. You don't want to see any molds detected in the product. Heavy metal testing, non-detected. Now in an unregulated industry, if I made a product and it was like, oh man, there's heavy metals in it, I can still go put it on the shelf. I would just crumple this up if I'm a shady cowboy and throw it in the trash and go sell this product. Pesticides, so you need to be really confident in your chain of production while you're manufacturing, because being faced with this is being faced with like a principle of how you do business. Pesticide screening, solvents is the alcohols that they use to wash, but they can use butane, pentane, like a whole bunch of different alcohols to wash. And then this one we pay extra for. It's called trace THC testing. So we pay to show that there's no residual amounts of THC in our product. This is becoming more popular as we start to enter and have, people in the VA asking us to come and give talks about, and there's people that are concerned about what they're buying. So we sort of right now say we remove all THC as a nice level playing field for people to learn about CBD. That doesn't mean that someday we won't have low levels of THC in our product. We may, from a medicinal standpoint. So believe it or not, if you were to scan this QR code, and you certainly can, you will see 7 certificate of analysis for our product. Overload, but that's what you have to do. At least then you do it once, you find a reputable CBD company, you make sure that it's all made in America. Nobody should be sourcing Chinese hemp, especially with what's everything going on right now, but it actually was a really common thing a few years ago. Chinese hemp, yeah.
So there's no regulation, or can people fudge these certificates? I mean,
Yes.
is it-
Yep, so these are third-party certificates, so here's the cool part. Your third-party certificate should give you the name of the company. I pay Botanicor to do this testing. You can call Botanicor on this certificate of analysis, and they're the neutral party. Botanicor is actually here in Colorado. They're the largest third-party testing facility for cannabis in the country. They're phenomenal. So that's really where you have to go. If they fudge these all the time. So if you go to this and you don't see like, hey, here's the approval, here's the information name, they'll give you sort of this, fine print down below that this is Botanicor's testing, then yeah, you're dealing with, this one here is not a real QR code. Great marketing. Free, get your next bottle free. So it's so funny because this is really just a scan to get your next bottle free. Anyway, so yeah, you do definitely need to look that it's a third party that's done the testing on the product. This is a big commitment, which is interesting that 1/3 of Americans are buying CBD. They're buying it from their gas station, they're buying it from Amazon.com, they're buying it from their grocery store, and they're still feeling effects and benefits from it, which is fascinating when you realize how much more could be done for them. So this is a must-have on a CBD product. So if you have people saying to you, but I love the CBD that I take and I swear it must have been laced with THC, you can let them know 40% of the CBD products in the industry test hot for THC. Meaning if they do not make sure that their CBD product has a QR code and validates that there's less than 0.3% THC, they're gonna fail a drug test. It will give you the QR code, it'll actually give you a batch number that relates to like these 1,000 bags that came in, all went through that same testing, so that's our batch number. You should see with an established company, lots and lots of QR codes and certificates on their websites. It'll have a manufacturing date and then obviously a country of origin as well. So, I mean, is there any questions on that? Cause that is a lot, honestly, when you think about it, yeah.
So all of this information is very interesting and very helpful.
Thank you. Thanks for just saying that, cause I appreciate it.
And thank you for making it digestible as well. But what I wonder is, how does this only apply to what you're ingesting, or does this apply to topical products as well?
Yeah, so topical CBD, this is our topical CBD lotion, which I'm obsessed with, so is Lori. Topical applications have next to no penetration into your bloodstream. So they can get into the underlying tissues and you could have a positive tissue sample, but as far as getting into your bloodstream, there is something called transdermal, meaning you wear this patch and it has this slow release and they can have some, like a small amount of the product get into your bloodstream, but topical applications, very little in your bloodstream.
And what about in terms of the heavy metals and all those other things?
It's the same thing. So I don't want to be rubbing this. I actually lately have been using this as my face cream. It wasn't my normal. But all these people have been like sending us testimonials telling us, oh my God, that cream is so good on my face. And I was like, that's not why we made it.
But I had that one time and I was like,
Yeah, so now I'm like, whatever, you know, I don't know. It's the same thing. You don't want to be rubbing this on your face if it has, you know, pentane in it or a pesticide in it. And the interesting thing about it is this opens up this really big disastrous area for regulation. So this is a lotion. We did all of that extraction of the CBD, we put it into a powder format, and then we sent that powder to our lotion manufacturer who added lavender, lemon, and yuzu essential oils along with a whole slew of other ingredients to make this, but there's no testing of this because it's a CBD lotion. So that lavender could be from like pesticide crazy farm. The lemon could be, I don't know, you know what I'm trying to get at. This also needs the QR code on the packaging because what you put on your skin does go into your tissues. We do know that. As far as if I was rubbing THC like all over my body, probably something would go wrong, but on a little local area, very little into your bloodstream.
Bathed in it, bad idea.
Yeah, bathed in it, bad idea. Yeah, so this is more so now I feel like for general information about the CBD industry. These are the types of products that people will see. A full spectrum product means that everything from that hemp plant was extracted into an oil and put into a product. So they don't take out the THC. So a full spectrum, this is helpful if people are wondering like, well, what type of CBD product should they take? Full spectrum product has less than 0.3% THC, give or take 40% of the products in the industry. Broad spectrum means they've removed THC. The only way to guarantee it is through that QR code and validating through testing. But a broad spectrum product means THC has been removed and everything else remains. An isolated product, which I brought for you guys to sample today, is just one compound. So when people are super hesitant with us, we tell them, we make these little packets, this is just CBD, no other compound whatsoever, trace THC testing done, so 0.0% THC, and it just helps people kind of gradually enter into understanding. Then you have to figure out if you want to put it on topically or ingest it. Topical application is great for local inflammation, soreness, that sort of thing, and great for skin conditions. Super great for skin conditions. weirdly great for skin conditions. And then for us, we take all of our oils, which would be in gummy or oil format, and we actually make them water soluble. So they go into a tasteless, odorless powder. That's an extra step. That's an extra step for us that we know will pay off in the long run, because it's a really pleasant experience. Dropping this under your tongue, eating these, which are full of like sucralose and weird things, and eating gummy bears before bed just goes against everything my dentist ever told me. So then you have to figure out if you want oil-based or water-soluble. And so that's kind of how the products, look. This full spectrum, less than 0.3% THC, broad spectrum, and it's really cool. Our extractor is here, it just looks like a big chemistry lab. They boil the oils to certain boiling points where they know that certain compounds will boil off. So THC has a very low boiling point. They raise the level of the oil to THC's boiling point and boil it off. It's never 100% perfect, which is why the testing still absolutely has to be done. And then the isolate typically comes in a liquid or powder format. Topical applications, like I said, local effects only, not into your circulation. And a really great way, like that's a great thing. If someone's tested positive on a drug test, letting them know, like, well, if CBD really helps you, maybe you should consider topical application, if they're needing to, make sure that they stay out of trouble. So this more so is something I talk about a lot, actually, in my talks that I give, and I won't talk about it a ton here today. For me, as I started learning about this industry and how wild it was and how unregulated it was, I also very quickly learned that it's a really unpredictable experience for people taking CBD. And so we went down the road of making this water-soluble CBD, so the body and the experience of the person taking the CBD product is incredibly improved. And then this is not regulated. You can't have an FDA non-regulation and then have a regulated dosage amount for CBD either. And the weird thing about CBD is it has biphasic activity too. So THC, low amounts, really low amounts, great for anxiety, great for sleep, great for actually appetite suppression. High amounts of THC, appetite increasing, anxiety creating, and actually create insomnia and can create psychoses. CBD in low volumes is considered mood stabilizing and almost can help with focus. CBD in high volumes is sedative, makes you sleepy, makes you very, very relaxed. Here's the great part. The experimentation process is safe, right? So if I right now took 4 of these, which I have done, it would take me approximately 30 minutes to get home and go to bed. I can tell you that for me, it has nothing to do with body weight, it has nothing to do with gender. We give CBD to our dogs, every living human has this endocannabinoid system. A really high dosage of CBD will start to make you feel very sleepy, like you would feel if you were naturally going into that. A very low dosage of CBD for me, I describe as helping me focus, mainly sort of like calming anxiety, but not putting me to sleep. So this is very hard because it's not standardized. So for me to tell you a range of 2 milligrams to 200 is almost comical, but it's true. As long as the THC component is out of the product, you're now dealing in a really safe variety of experimentation. We make one might be put Lori to sleep. I don't know. Do you take this before bed?
I know, I have it in my coffee in the morning.
You do morning, yeah. I do morning, and then when I travel, I use it at night to sleep. So, but I don't really have a problem falling asleep, but I can have a bit of a problem at like 2 in the morning.
Getting back to sleep.
Right, and so that if that starts going on, then I'll use this before bed to stop that chatter in the middle of the night in my head. So this is just a recap. These are the types of products, and a reminder that hemp seed oil is often labeled as hemp oil, hemp extract oil, hemp gummy bears. Hemp seed oil, you might as well just go buy some olive oil. It's great in omega-3s and omega-6s or in avocado oil or any sort of like nut oil, but it shouldn't cost you more than $5-6 for a nice big jug of it to cook with. So if you're buying hemp seed oil, and you think you're getting a good deal at your gas station, you're not. But it's so frustrating because the labeling is very confusing for a consumer to navigate. So I always tell people, you know, read the label. I mean, to me, if this right here says CBD dissolvable powder contains 30 sticks, 30 milligrams of CBD per stick, 900 milligrams of CBD per bag, that tells me how much is in a serving and how much is in the total container. If I get into some of these, it says 135,000 milligrams of hemp extract. And then it says to me 1 dropper servings per container is 60, and hemp oil extract is 2,250 milligrams per dropper. This is hemp seed oil. All of this shouldn't make any sense if someone's like, oh wow, I got, you know, 100,000 plus milligrams of CBD. That's the confusing part, is that people are confusing hemp with the word CBD, and frankly, they could label that as CBD. So I always tell people to check all of this stuff, and that to remind yourself that how it's made is also not regulated. The things that people are putting in the product and using in the product is also not regulated. So that's my CBD safety checklist. I don't know how we are on time. How are we on time?
Ready for lunchtime.
Okay, so I'm gonna stick around, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have from a health perspective, you know, pain, sleep, anxiety, stress, that sort of thing. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. You guys, this is a 30 milligram stick pack of powder. You could all just have a very wonderful, non-aggressive afternoon at Top Golf. You know, but you're welcome to try a sample if you like. And I'm gonna leave my cards too, so if you're interested, like if anything I've said today like makes you think that it's something you personally or a family member, you can ping me and I'll send you guys a link to try some products and stuff like that. So I think that's great, right?
I think that's
is there
great. No.
anything you feel like I didn't
Yeah, I
cover?
think you did very good.
Well, and
Okay.
Christine, are you also able to stick around a
Oh,
little bit
yeah.
for questions? Because that's
Yeah.
why we also made this social time outside. So lunch is heated and ready to be eaten out there on the buffet table. This room is gonna end up shutting down, but we have